Our civilization is at a crossroads, and we're staring at two possible futures. One in which we continue with business as usual and get more of this, and the other in which we rise to the challenge and triumph in ways we never imagined. What's the challenge? Stopping climate change before it gets totally out of control. The reality is, climate change is already here. Whether in low-lying islands in the South Pacific or drought-affected regions in Asia and Africa, fires in Australia, flooding worldwide, or rapidly melting ecosystems in the far north, our planet's climate is already changing, and fast. What's more, the world's poor, who are the least responsible for climate change, are going to suffer the highest consequences. That's because they live in the places most vulnerable to drastic weather changes, and they're the least equipped to deal with them. What's the end result of all this if we do nothing? A temperature rise of 6 to 10 degrees, coastal cities flooded, massive food shortages, 500 million refugees, and more resource wars than we can count. To quote the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, if we do not significantly reduce emissions, the damage to poor countries will be up to more than 10 times greater than in the US and most other developed countries. In addition to that, they said failure to act could result in a 20% drop in worldwide GDP. Obviously, it's incredibly scary and we know we have to act fast. But if you're like me, just an average person who's concerned about the fate of the world, you probably feel pretty paralyzed. There's a reason for that. Usually when people talk about climate change, they tell you to switch your light bulbs, drive less, even eat less meat. But the reality is, while it's all important, it isn't enough. What we need is massive mobilization. It was done in the 30s with the New Deal. In the 40s, American industry mobilized for the war, sacrificed, and didn't make a single car for 4 years. After World War II, we had the Marshall Plan, which rebuilt Europe and Japan, turning former enemies into prosperous allies. We built housing, hospitals, roads, sewers, transportation systems, and schools at a cost, in today's figures, of nearly $300 billion. Did giving away all that money bankrupt the US? On the contrary, the stimulation of the Marshall Plan ushered in the greatest era of prosperity the world has ever known. See, the thing is, we've gone through these kinds of massive mobilizations before, tooling up to solve big problems, and we can do it again. So why hasn't it happened yet? Well, we could blame our leaders who have so far barely agreed on what kind of action to take. They're so stuck on process that very few remedies are in place. But can we blame them if they're really just our servants? Not at all. And if we get caught up in blaming ourselves, it'll just leave us more paralyzed, which is, at this point, the real cause behind the continuation of global warming. Last I checked, despair never motivated anyone to do anything. Despair does the opposite. What we need right now is a major Aikido kind of move on our fear of climate change. So that despair turns to hope and paralysis turns to action. How do we get there? By realizing what an utterly amazing opportunity we have presented to us. We have the chance to unite as a planet and transform this world in ways that we never imagined. Here are some incredible examples. On the Loess Plateau in China, an area the size of Belgium has been successfully restored in just 10 years, bringing a barren landscape back to life. People once stuck in backbreaking poverty now work, farm, herd, and live in a functioning green ecosystem where rainfall penetrates instead of washing away, and crops are ready for export. Organizations like Practical Action are distributing low-tech solutions to the world's poor that can be implemented fast, like foot pumps that replace the need for diesel engines, fuel-efficient stoves, small-scale hydroelectric generators, or this ingenious wind belt that's powering his cell phone. On a larger scale, some examples are energy systems that harness the power of waves, this wind turbine that works out at sea where wind speeds are higher. Google has a new tool to track tropical deforestation, which causes bigger emissions than all cars, trucks, planes, ships, and trains worldwide. Researchers at Penn State have a bacteria that cleans sewage and creates electricity. Green Exchange and the Hub are working to help corporations share sustainability info to speed innovation. Biodegradable plastic that is renewable and has a lower carbon footprint. And this guy is working on a machine that converts carbon emissions into clean fuels. These are just a few of thousands of innovations happening worldwide. See, we can rebuild damaged ecosystems, making them less vulnerable to climate change. We can expand investments into green tech, and we can share them around the world. We just need to do a heck of a lot more of what is already working, by getting over our worn-out us versus them attitude and realizing we have more to gain by working together than constantly competing for our own self-interest. In fact, a Nobel Prize-winning mathematician named John Nash actually proved it's more profitable to make sure that everybody's needs are met. An even wilder possibility is that what's happening here is another evolutionary step. Richard Potts, an anthropologist at the Smithsonian, has a theory that part of what caused us to originally evolve was major climatic changes and energy shortages. What if that's happening again, but on a larger scale? Maybe as a result of all this, we're actually going to evolve into something greater. Maybe we'll even get some cool new superpowers. I really like with all the beams. You see, the opportunity with climate change is that we can actually remake ourselves and rebuild the world. We can institute a Green New Deal, a global Marshall Plan that radically transforms this planet, building a better world for all of us, making it a safer place to live, and perhaps even reaching a new level of prosperity we've never experienced before. Yeah, climate change is still scary, but the next time you feel that, turn to someone and tell them about the Green New Deal or our global Marshall Plan. Tell them that it's truly possible we can turn this thing around. Spread it, share it, because if this positive energy spreads, it will motivate us and lead us to mobilization on a massive scale. It's happened before, it can happen again.
But it's too late to turn back now. Much too high to try to climb back down. If you've ever thought of helping me out, I think it's time. 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 Think it's time right now.
Yes, there are two futures awaiting us. Which one do you want?